And welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. I am super excited to dive into today's lesson review with you. We are going to start with just a quick review of previous lessons, and then we'll dive into today's two lessons for just a deeper look. Lesson 40, I am blessed as a son of God. Lesson 41, God goes with me wherever I go. Lesson 42, God is my strength. Vision is his gift. Lesson 43, God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. Lesson 44, God is the light in which I see. Lesson 45, God is the mind with which I think. Lesson 46, God is the love in which I forgive. Lesson 47, God is the strength in which I trust. Lesson 48, there is nothing to fear. Lesson 49, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Lesson 50, I am sustained by the love of God. Lesson 61, I am the light of the world. Lesson 62, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Lesson 63, the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. Lesson 64, let me not forget my function. Lesson 65, my only function is the one God gave me. Lesson 66, my happiness and my function are one. Lesson 67, love created me like itself. Lesson 68, love holds no grievances. Lesson 69, my grievances hide the light of the world in me. Lesson 70, my salvation comes from me. Lesson 71, only God's plan for salvation will work. Lesson 72, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. And we are going to be reviewing lessons 70, we're diving into lesson 72 and lesson 73 for our review today. All right. Or lesson 73 and 74. All right, here we go. Only God's plan for salvation will work. I'm sorry, this is lesson 71. It is senseless for me to search wildly for salvation. I have seen it in many people and in many things. But when I reached for it, it was not there. I was mistaken about where it is. I was mistaken about what it is. I will undertake no more idle seeking. Only God's plan for salvation will work, and I will rejoice because his plan can never fail. There are some suggested forms for applying this idea specifically. These are some suggested forms. God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this, whatever situation or circumstance. This is no exception in God's plan for my salvation. Let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. You know, I was talking to my sister last night, and we were talking about just really this process of letting go. The book that I've been giving out for trivia, we play trivia every Wednesday. And the book I've been giving out every single week has been Letting Go by David Hawkins. And y'all, there's something around truly surrendering. You know, only God's plan for salvation will work. And as I'm reading this, I'm just thinking about all the times when I don't consciously think that if I achieve the thing I'm striving for, if I work through this conflict or insert the blank, all the things that we're trying to do, everything that we define as success, I don't consciously think that achieving that or doing that will get me salvation. Yet when I actually use this framework, I realize that I kind of am. I'm very subconsciously assigning this thing that I'm pursuing as a mechanism to achieve salvation, not necessarily spiritual salvation, but maybe intellectual salvation or emotional salvation. Like, I will feel better. My life will be better. I will be better. My life will turn around. And you know, last night we were talking about building a strong brand, and we did some real-time applications, and we were talking about potential job changes, and all of that is so important. I mean, even just this morning, I had a 8 a.m. meeting virtually with a team out of Manhattan to do some training on knowing yourself and knowing your brand. And y'all, that's all important. That's all good. And therein does not lie our salvation. Where our salvation lies is in knowing who we are and living according to that and choosing, I am actually going to fulfill on what the ultimate function that achieves salvation is, which is God's plan for it. It's us operating as the light of the world. It's us operating in alignment with who God says that we are. And in that, we experience total freedom. And there's a surrender and a letting go. There's an element where, my darling and I have this concept and this narrative that we continuously repeat to ourselves. And I would say it's a core belief. My dad once said, he said, if you can just believe that God is good. And this core belief that we really hold to is everything is for me. Every single thing that happens, there must be something for me in this. My sister says it differently. She says, what is God doing in this? And so effectively, any circumstance, any environment, any conflict, any, honestly, obstacle, there is something for us in this. And we see it best in some of these historical stories of people who it was just like all going to hell in a handbasket. And then the concept of what you intended for evil, God used for good. Y'all, that is a promise. That is actually a covenant, so to say, with every single person who is seeking to live and orient their lives rightly, where there's a promise of every single thing will be used for good at the end. And we will never be forsaken. We are always loved. We are always chosen. And so this concept of, if I am choosing to orient my steps, to orient my heart, my mind, my beliefs, everything, I call it vertical alignment, bringing every part of me into alignment under the hierarchy of who do I want to be? Am I crystal clear on where I'm going, who I want to be, what my goals are, what my mission is? Why am I here? How can I serve? How can I love well? Bringing everything that I'm feeling, thinking, acting, behaving, bringing all of that into submission. Underneath that, who do I want to be? But then ultimately, who does God say that I am? And that aspect of who God says I am is rooted in relationship with knowing him to begin with. And so from that place of relationship, we then can say, this is for me. We can say, I am the light of the world. We can proceed with confidence and letting go as we're waiting for the goodness of how this is going to be redeemed, because it will. It always, always will, whether it's on this side of eternity or not. And so that's where, honestly, that's really where faith comes into play. Am I going to keep going? Am I going to keep working hard? Am I going to keep applying myself? And it touches, this concept is not one that is just spiritual. It touches every area of life. I'm listening to a book, From Good to Great, by Jim Collins, and it's Jim Collins, brilliant man. And he studied successful CEOs and successful businesses for a decade or longer. He and his team just researched before AI came out. So I can't even imagine the hundreds of thousands of hours that they put into this book. And as these CEOs are really trying to turn these companies from good companies to great companies, there was a lot of sacrifice. There were a lot of incredibly difficult times. And so the concept of actually having faith that this will be for me at the end of the day, whether I end up having to, like one CEO, he was telling the story, he ended up calling them and saying, hey, because of, this was a Fannie Mae CEO at the time. And he said, hey, because of the logistics here, I'm going to let go of the $5 million you guys owe me. Donate that to charity, and I'm going to let that go. And that was just such an incredible, iconic example of leadership. And then the blessing that comes on the other side of generosity. Just the other day, we were talking with Justin Donald, who is just an incredibly brilliant man. I really recommend it. It was 2 days ago that we had this conversation. He was talking about, how do I be more generous? How do I give more away? How do I live more, letting go of the material things that so often people hold on so tightly to? I love the example of Jacob Marley in the story, The Christmas Carol. For those of you who know the story, The Christmas Carol features Ebenezer Scrooge. And even just his name, it's not pleasant. He's a grumpy old curmudgeon, and he hates Christmas. He's like, it's an excuse to pick the poor man's pocket, and just like, why do I, or the rich man's pocket. He's like, why should I give you a day off for Christmas? Why should I pay you? But so be it. And as it's Christmas Eve, he gets visited by his old former partner in the business, and who died 7 years ago. So the ghost comes in, Jacob Marley, and he has links and chains behind him of money boxes and ledgers and everything effectively tethering him to his former life. And he said, I built these chains link by link, yard by yard. So with everything that we're holding tightly to, every outcome we're attached to, everything that we're not willing to let go, every grievance that we're holding on tightly, every person's neck collar that we're holding on to and not willing to let them go, we're also holding ourselves to the past, tethered to forever to the past until we're willing to let go and be able to proceed into the future. So guys, this concept of only God's plan for salvation will work, which is today's lesson, it touches beyond spirituality to, am I actually trusting in and putting my hope and faith in an outcome, into the new job, into getting accepted to the school, into a career shift, into the promotion? What am I subconsciously saying to myself? Once I get this, my life will be better. Because for so long as we're saying that, we're not able to be free. We're not able to be free in the present and be here in the now and be able to even receive. For so long as we're closed-fisted, we're not able to be open-handed to receive maybe even something better. And so often something better is actually on the other side. Now, it might be painful to get there, but the more we're able to let go, the more we're able to really, truly receive and walk in the freedom of the now. Lesson 72, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Holding grievances is an attempt to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work, yet only his plan will work. By holding grievances, I am therefore excluding my only hope of salvation from my awareness. I would no longer defeat my own best interests in this insane way. I would accept God's plan for salvation and be happy. Specific application for this idea might come in these forms. I am choosing between misperception and salvation as I look at this. If I see grounds for grievances in this, I will not see the grounds for my salvation. This calls for salvation, not attack. Y'all, as I'm reading this, I'm reminded we have so much power over the way that we get to view the world, but so much of it is that we actually need to live awake and live conscious and live aware. The first step, emotional intelligence, is defined in kind of like two parts. Emotional intelligence first is the ability to be aware of, understand, control, and convey one's own emotions, and the ability to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and with empathy. So with wisdom and with empathy. But the first part is our responsibility for us internally. But the very first step in emotional intelligence is honestly being aware. Am I even aware? Am I even awake? It's not some radical thing that we need to do to become emotionally intelligent. It's really just about slowing down. It's about being aware of what is going on inside of me in response to the world around me. And in that, we actually learn to take control of our inner world. It's okay, first on being aware, then understanding why am I reacting this way? What is happening? And then how do I control that? Do I need to the next point, convey it, communicate it? Is it something that I maybe need to heal from? So it might be conveying it to the person, hey, you hurt me. It might actually be conveying it to somebody like a mentor and saying, hey, I need help with this because I can't do it on my own. Or it could even just be, hey, by the way, this happened and I'm okay. I just want you to know that was hurtful or that was upsetting. Y'all, we have all of the control of our own inner world. Nobody else. We are giving other people out. It's like doling out passes. You have power over me. You have power over me anytime we're holding on to grievances. The more we're holding on to the neck collar of anybody else, or even a desired outcome, that thing has emotional control over you and me. And so if we truly want to live as free, then we would have to adhere to these lessons, which is only God's plan for salvation will work. And in that, we experience emotional freedom to be here in the present and even allow for the process, which is so often, the before. It's the preamble to the outcome that we're looking for. So am I even going to allow myself to move through the process and really be cultivated and changed and even enjoy the process, like enjoy the journey, as they say? But if we're chasing an end goal and having our identity and attachment to that end outcome, we cannot enjoy the now. So the more we're actually really letting go and allowing for the outcome to be something that maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But either way, I'm good. Either way, I know who I am. Either way, I'm going to walk in my identity. And either way, I know that I get to experience joy right here, right now. I don't have to wait to have joy for that desired outcome. So with that, I'm just going to jump in the chat. Bradley, My new favorite person, right back at you, my friend. Swagata, hello. Thanks for joining. Jack, good morning. I'm so glad you're here. Liam, hello. Pratham, good morning. Slanam, just dropping in. Don't mind me. Have a great stream. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out. Johnson, Timothy, good to see you. Candy, Johnson, Timothy. I am gonna put you on timeout. All right, I am just looking down here. Jose, good morning. First like, I love it. Thank you. Just scrolling down. JC, thank you so much for joining. Yvonne, 12 Poles Line, good morning. Jingle Jungle, yes, he is. I love my papa. Oh, Nicole, I bought earrings. I bought earrings like your white ones. I love them. Oh, I have to say those are my very favorite. I'm so glad you're here, Nicole. Also, I like what. Okay, so this is, I guess, kind of a mini announcement for those of you who last night we were on the show and we decided that April 9th is going to be the day. Bradley was on. DJ, a few others. We were talking about the fact that April 9th is going to be the first day that I'm going to set up the Knowing community so that whoever, I'll have to figure out kind of the rules, but whoever wants to go live with me, we'll kind of do a roundtable and we'll pick some topics and we'll start going live. And so, Nicole, it would be fun to have you and see you and see your earrings. Endless Name, good morning. Just saying thank you for hanging out. Just saying, I'm not into religion because it's just another excuse for hate, but I'd listen to you talk about it. You know, I really loved switching out the word religion for relationship because to be honest with you, religion was the last place I wanted to be when I was just so broken. And even now, like I do struggle, you know, I struggle so much. Like I went to church a couple weeks ago and it was hard. I just feel like so many people aren't alive and experiencing the goodness and love and favor of God and like walking in freedom. And there's just like this heaviness to religion that I just keep seeing. And so I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I know that there's wonderful churches, I'm sure, and places of worship and real genuine relationship, but the relationship is what is most important for me. Man, experiencing the presence of God when you're in the depth of sorrow, there's nothing like it. So for me, that relationship is like, it's so precious. And honestly, it took me a good long while to even feel comfortable sharing because I felt so vulnerable over it. It's like the things that we hold so dear, so often we don't even want to talk about because it is something that we feel so strongly about. So I never wanted to share about or talk about it because it's so easy to misunderstand. So I really appreciate that. Means a lot, you saying that, because that's really my heart, is that it's not coming from some religious lens, religion in so many ways. And I want to say this carefully because again, I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I've just seen so much destruction come from religion because it's not rooted in relationship. It's not rooted in love. You know, it says now I don't know, like even the story of Jesus, like he got mad at the religious leaders, like they were the ones that he got upset with. And so I think you're right in terms of saying so often religion divides, and that's what I've seen a lot of. And so it's more so about relationship and knowing the love and the power of God, because that's the thing. If we understood, every single one of us understood that we actually can live in freedom, in joy, in peace all the time, like awesome. And power. Like that's the thing. Like we actually get the power and presence of God because he's in us, which is just so cool. So it's just a completely different way of living rather than when I show up at religious constructs and it's like this doomsday message and it's all about, it's like hanging your head low and we're just, I don't know. No, that's not at all the story of what I believe in. All right, scrolling down. Justin, howdy, first time viewer. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for hanging out. I am Oh, I love this. Adrian says, hi, Adrian, my friend. Adrian, we were talking about you last night. I don't know if you're still watching, but I would love to have you come on the Knowing Show and talk about Web3. Last night you came up and we were talking. I actually linked our previous conversation in the chat. But I would love if you're up for it, for us to talk AI. And we also need to talk about marriage, because that was another thing we wanted to talk about. Okay. So this is the quote from Adrian on Facebook. When I don't know who I am, I serve you. When I know who I am you. Ram Dass. I've got to look into that one. that makes me curious. Shaquille. I also have never read Ram Dass, so I need to go learn. I've heard his name, but I don't really know who he is. Shaquille, good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Raj PPM. Good morning, Josh. Thank you. I woke up at 4:25 this morning, so it was nice to get a start on the day. Z Ryan, hello. David. All right. Define what you mean when you say religion. I would say religion, honestly, probably more so in alignment with the Pharisaical type of approach, where it's not necessarily like a religious belief system. It's more like the dogmatic black and white. That's why I have to be so careful when I'm talking about this, because to your point about defining terms, when I'm talking about religion, I'm really speaking to kind of that Pharisaical approach and mindset that can be found in across any type of belief and religious framework. Defer John. Ish Tia says, in your spiritual time, how do you pray? How do you process your thoughts? What a beautiful, beautiful question. What a good question. How do I pray? I learned to pray from my dad. I'm one of 6 kids, and we would be, getting ready in the morning, getting ready for school, and he would be in the little powder bathroom, and he would actually have music playing, and he'd be singing, and we'd hear him pray. He would go on prayer walks. So we have a family business. It's 100 years old, 104 years. It was started in 1922 in Baltimore, and he would pray over the business. He would pray over his family. Pray for each one of us. My mom will pray for us. She has a day of the week for every single kid, because there's 6 of us. And so every Thursday, yesterday was my day where she was praying for me, and she'll leave me prayer messages. For me personally, it's interesting. Man, it's like I was saying earlier, this topic is so personal. Oh gosh. Prayer. I'm just going to go for it. I feel like we're just going to go for it. Prayer is something that I think I would say I had major breakthrough on prayer when I really started being honest with God. And it was 5 years ago now, 5 summers ago. Well, actually, no, backing up. So my brother-in-law, he and my sister had a 3-week-old baby girl, and he was killed by a drunk driver. And my sister and her 3-week-old baby girl moved in with us, and it was just pretty much the most devastating time of our lives, and it was awful. And so that was, I think, kind of the first time I was really honest with God. I was like, why did this happen? And really started, we've been talking about contending with God and wrestle. There's this biblical story of somebody wrestling with God. And I think I had to wrestle with him. And that led to a breakthrough in prayer, was I needed to be honest. And then the second kind of big breakthrough in prayer was when my husband left, and he said, I don't love you. I don't love God. I don't love your family. And that just completely devastated me. And that, I think, was a second breakthrough, but it was really fully, I learned a lesson, really fully unveiling myself. Somebody told me this story, and it's actually a story in the Bible. It's this woman who really, really wanted a child. And she for years and years and years, she prayed and prayed and prayed and hoped and wanted, and nothing. And then finally, she went to the temple. And at the time, it was like that's where the presence of God dwelled, was in this physical building. And so she went to the temple. And the verse says, she poured out her soul before the Lord, and the Lord heard her. It's funny. I don't know why I feel like I'm getting emotional. Y'all, when we're in that season of just like so much brokenness, it's like you're watching your whole world just crumble in front of you. And I know a lot of you have been through that at various points, and watching my sister's world crash and burn, and, my niece growing up without dad, and then watching my husband leave. It really was just like, God, how could you let this happen? And I never would have thought that divorce would have been like something that was what God would have wanted. And yet that's where I was. That was where my life was. And actually it like gave me hope knowing my sister had made it through her loss. We don't talk about the difference between grieving the dead versus grieving the living. To know that that person still exists and doesn't want you is devastating. And so I think I had my biggest breakthrough in prayer when I really started to pour out my soul and really started being honest with God, and just was like, what the heck? Like I did everything right, And I think that was on the other side of being really honest, was when I started having the breakthrough with prayer and really started to experience the presence of God in a very tangible way. And then the third breakthrough I had with prayer was learning to hear his voice. That changed everything for me. And learning to hear his voice was coming through the time of like, let me pour out my soul and then sit and be quiet, like sitting in the silence. And I think that's part of going through the healing process, is just being quiet, turning off the noises, eliminating the inputs, turning off our phones, putting our phones down, and really allowing for, I guess you could say, the healing work to be done, and allowing for the tending of the soul of God to us. So it's pouring out our souls and then listening to receive. Because if we're filled up with anger, if we're filled up with grief, there's no capacity, there's no more room. It's like we've got nowhere to put anything new. So by pouring out, we're actually expanding our capacity and allowing for space for God to fill that void, and for his presence to really come in and like love on us and tend to us. So, I think that's what I would say to your question. So thank you for asking. I'm just looking here in the chat. Wow. Sunny Nightmare says, rejection is protection. It's so funny. I really believe that in so many ways. I really, really, really do. I saw here in the chat, like, divorce is never God's will or what God wants. I think that there is something where I think God is so much more nuanced than God is not black and white. And I think that that's something that I've really come to learn. He's so much bigger than me. and I tried to put him in a box. I feel like on a regular basis, I don't mean to, but I try to put him in a box to understand him. And the box keeps flying off. The lid keeps flying off. And I don't know, so here's the thing. If I was to believe, okay, God would never want divorce, so am I fundamentally living a life God doesn't want for me? So I really struggle with, I can't let the narratives of like God should or God doesn't or God, wouldn't want this. It goes back to this whole conversation around God's plan for salvation. I have to trust that if I am ordering and orienting my life, my heart, my soul, my being under him and saying, use me, take me, I want to live in my calling. I want to live on the fullness of who I can be. I have to trust that God's going to be faithful to I mean, there's this beautiful concept of God being the shepherd, like taking care of us, like he's the shepherd of our souls. And so if I want to do his bidding, how much more does a shepherd want to tend to his sheep? So I actually really trust that. I trust that I'm not just living this whole big mistake because my husband left, somebody I can't control. And so that was something, though, that I really had to work through. I felt like, if any of you have read the Scarlet Letter, I read that, I think, in 7th grade. And the story goes that it's this woman, and it's a Protestant community, and she commits adultery, and she has a scarlet A sewn into her lapel. And so I felt like I had a scarlet D sewn into my lapel. And that's when, particularly, I didn't want to go into those religious places, because I didn't experience the love and compassion that Christ offered the woman at the well of, hey, I know you've married 5 men, and you're with your 6th, and you're not married to him. Go and sin no more. Like, you actually are the person I'm revealing myself to first before anybody. Like, what? Guys, Jesus comes in and completely flips everything on its head. Everything that we think of in religious terms in so many ways is completely reversed in the way that we understand and experience Christ. And so this Jesus that is so often depicted in the church is so, man, there's so much judgment and like a cruelty. And that's the religion that I hate, and I think Jesus hates too. I think he would hate how he's being depicted by so many. And the thing that's so cool is that we get to experience him for ourselves and be like, Jesus, God the Father, Jesus, Holy Spirit, all three, reveal yourself to me. Do we actually want to be revealed? Do we want to be revealed to? Like, do we want to be a vessel for the revelation of God? That temple, the woman who went and poured out her soul when the spirit and presence of God was in that temple. We now get to be that temple, which is so cool, which means that God can speak to us with the spirit of God dwelling in us. And we get to have the revelation around, where should I go? How should I live? Was this a big old mistake? And I actually, I feel like God's really answered me around that question around my marriage, because it was, what a life. It was devastating and life altering, and just completely, in so many ways, ruined everything I had planned in life. So am I now just living one big mistake? God doesn't, want death. So my sister, is she now living one big mistake because her husband's gone? So this whole conversation, I think, is really, really important. But it just warrants and kind of forces me to think of, am I living and thinking dogmatically, or am I allowing for there to be being taught by God, about what's true? Adrian says, Jesus called the Pharisees in the temple hypocrites, blind guides, blind fools, whitewashed tombs, snakes, serpents, and a generation of vipers. Dude, like, y'all, those are some strong words. And so am I being like, this is where we're preaching this morning. So normally we don't go to this extent here on the show, but I think we should. Y'all, those priests, those Pharisees who were the ones representing God, we actually now get the opportunity to go and talk about redemption. We actually get to be those people, those representatives of God, but we can only be the authentic, true, integrous representative of that which we know, that which we have communed with and experienced, and the one that we've actually come to receive love and thus love in return. And so in this whole, and I've never even thought about it from this perspective. This is so cool. Like, in us coming in and saying, hey, we're going to be, we get to effectively be priests, because the temple of God, we're the temple. So then the question is, okay, well, am I actually living in such a way where I can receive? I'm living in, like, literally choosing my decisions, my behaviors, my mindsets, what I watch, what I consume, what I listen to. Am I actually being a conduit for the presence of God, to be able to receive and thus be able to reflect in so many ways? H2, thank you so much for your comment and kindness. Zyron says, blind leading the blind. It's so true, y'all. If we don't have our own eyes open, if we don't come to know God, we're perpetually blind, effectively. Your reflection reminds me of the song Outskirts of Heaven by Craig Campbell. I need to listen to that. Sunnyside, yes. Following God can feel like a trust fall / leap of faith. So worth it, though. I agree. Hypocrisy and judgment turns a lot of people from going to church. Um, absolutely no mistake. God removed that out of your life for bigger, better things in your life. The earth is described as reeling like a drunkard under the weight of sin, as discussed in many interpretations on. I've never heard that, man. I think most people in the church believe that Jesus came to die for us. And while there is truth in that, they forget that that was not his only purpose. He came here to show us how to live. Word. Yes. And Adrienne, I think that that's fundamentally what's being missed right now is that Jesus said, it's better for you that I leave. Why would it be better? Well, because now we actually get to, as he said also, you will do greater things than this. So the power and potency of how Christ lived truly was an example that we actually get to embody. Y'all, if we're not living in walking in power, where our presence doesn't turn heads and people are coming to us being like, hey, like, wow, you're cool. Like, what's going on? Why are you different? Because we are walking in the power of the presence of God in us and in the fullness of our identity. Do you know who you are? Do you know who you were called to be? We talked about there's kind of two parts to identity. Identity A is, okay, who does God say that I am? You're loved. You're so cherished. There is nothing you can do that would separate you from the love of God. And identity B is, who were you uniquely created to be? The way you laugh, your personality, your unique even combination of experiences, your story, your soul, what you love, what you care about, what you get angry by, all of that, the amalgamation of these two creates the you and me that comes forward then to the room that then the presence of God fills, and we're like, hey, I'm here to be on mission. I've got something incredibly important to do with my life, and I'm here to serve. And so let's get this show on the road. Y'all, if we're not feeling impassioned by what we do and who we are and this life, then we're probably not fully awake to our very, I guess you could say, identity. If we're not feeling excited, if we're not feeling that sense of power and that sense of purpose, then we probably actually don't know the fullness of who we are, because God created us in his image. So one, we're image bearers, which is freaking awesome. So therefore it's like, okay, let me go look in the mirror and remind myself that I actually am made in the image of the infinite ultimate creator. And I have a purpose and a calling. So with that, y'all, thank you so much for joining today. We went in a lot of different directions. I love this conversation. We're going to be live again tonight. Actually, tonight, I'm super excited about this. This was a topic that was asked for earlier this week. We're going to be talking about how to heal the inner child, or how to tend to the inner child. So we're going to be going live at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And I actually am going to take time. I do need to jump off here for some meetings, but I'm looking at the comments here. And so I'm going to save these comments and then go through them so that I can just tune in. But I just wanted to say that I'm seeing these, and then I'd love to maybe even create some specific titles for future conversations around them. So in the mornings, every morning, 9 a.m. This morning I went on a little bit late because I was doing a talk for a Manhattan networking group. 9 a.m. Eastern, we do a daily Course in Miracles. And then in the evenings, we will have guests on the show and we'll talk about IQ, EQ, business. And so with that, thank you guys for hanging out with me this morning. This was a really meaningful conversation. So